Yeah.
Because ecosystems, and your gut in particular, that's why we call it now a microbiome, is an ecosystem, and it thrives on balance.
Mm.
Ecosystems do not thrive with large amounts of any particular substance.
True.
And your body doesn't actually know what to do. When you take a large amount of magnesium and it puts you to sleep, or it makes you eliminate, it's because there is excess. That's the reaction that you're having, is actually a response to the excess in your system. So
Wow.
yes, it will make you sleep, or it will create elimination, make you eliminate. But what you're doing is you're putting a Band-Aid on the system, and you're continuing the up and down roller coaster experience in your body.
Good morning and welcome to the Fusionary Health podcast. I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and this is the podcast dedicating to recalibrating your health every day. My goal is to help you wake up each day energized by addressing root causes and giving you new approaches to preventive health. The more we know about integrative health, the more empowered we are in building the vibrant health we want.
Welcome to the Fusionary Health podcast, where I bring you the best of the best in terms of practitioners, integrative medicine solutions, and founders of very cool products that I discover to be part of the toolkit that we can all build for ourselves for our health. So today I have a very special guest for you. Her name's Caroline Allen from Beam Minerals. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you so much for having me, Shivani.
Thank you for coming. So I recently got to hang out with you. You came to Atlanta to be on my TV show, which I really appreciate. When I met you, I realized, you know what? This is a topic I don't know much about. I've always heard we need to take our minerals. I've done heavy metal testing, so I've heard at times like you're high copper, you're low zinc, you're low iron, you need to take magnesium, all these ideas. But when I met you, I was like, wow, this is an area I need to understand better. This is a building block of health. So I'm so excited that you are the mineral geek and you're going to dive into minerals for us today and my audience and share with us like what we need to know. So will you start first by sharing your story and how you even got into minerals in the first place?
Yeah, somebody had told me that I would be a mineral geek years ago. I would have looked at them very strangely. What happened to me was I was in a corporate career. I was a top gun for hire in the technology world. And I burned out of that career, as many people do. And I was in very ill health. I had flatlined adrenals for 2 years, and I worked with many different people trying to heal that. I had really bad inflammation in my gut, even after being gluten-free for 7 years and really working on trying to heal it. I could never get over the bloating, the discomfort, and all sorts of elimination issues. I also had really bad inflammation in my mouth, so receding gums. It had started when I'd had my children, even though at this time my kids were like 8 and 10. But I'd never been able to get back to good health in my mouth. So I had receding gums, deep pockets. I had weak dentin in my teeth. So literally the surfaces were not hard in many places. And I had gone to multiple dentists trying to heal that problem as well. And then I had recurring sinus infections that came every 6 to 8 weeks. I would get another sinus infection. So I was in really bad shape. And at that time, just because of Providence, I was introduced to plant-based minerals. And simply by taking them, and they were these liquids that I drank every day, and they taste like water. And I hate taking supplements and pills in general. I'm not real good at those things. I've done a lot of Chinese medicine, a lot of herbal stuff, tastes terrible. I was like, I don't want to do it. But these were really easy. So I kept taking them. About 2 months in, I went to my dentist and she had my teeth cleaned. There was very little pain or discomfort. She looked in my mouth. She exclaimed, she was like, my gosh, what's different? the tissue is looking pink and healthy. There's no red inflamed spots. You didn't bleed when you were having your teeth cleaned. What's changed? And, at the time I couldn't even think of it. I was like, well, I don't know. I guess it might be these minerals.
Yeah.
So she said, well, just keep taking them. 4 months in, I went to my naturopath and I'd had my adrenal test done. And she looked down at the results and she was so surprised because they were 1/3 of the way up the chart. And this was after 2 years of trying all sorts of different remedies, tools. At my last appointment, my naturopath had wanted me to take hydrocortisone. That's how, dire the situation was. And she's like, well, what are you doing? And I said, I think it might be these minerals. So then I went through one season and another without getting any sinus infections, the gut dysbiosis, which is, this leaky gut, all this elimination issues, they just resolved.
Nice.
And I was left with this incredible curiosity about why and how could this little bit of mineral liquid that tasted like water have such a profound effect on my health.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how did you go about researching it? 'Cause I'm the same way. When I'm like, oh my God, this worked. Why? How? Who? What is the thing? I'm like that with Ayurvedic herbs all day. I'm like, oh my God, ashwagandha can do that for us. What else can it do? So how did you go about researching it? Because I know you took a big deep dive.
I did. I started out just studying like minerals in the body, and that got very, very complex, excuse me, very quickly, and got me into, the way that a cell works, and then I wanted to learn about the whole gut microbiome and how do minerals get back into the body, and why don't pills and powders and things like that work. And so I had to study biochemistry, the biology of a cell and all of the operations and how that works. I had to study a lot of biosynthesis processes in the body. I also studied all about mineral balances and how, one thing people don't understand about minerals is that they work in this balance, this beautiful homeostasis. And, when using one mineral or another doesn't really support the overall balance of minerals in your body. I even ended up studying, because I was taking these plant-based minerals, so I studied where they came from, how they're made. I ended up studying soils and understanding about mineral depletion, why we're all depleted,
Right.
why I was so mineral depleted. How did that happen? So
Let's talk about two things there. One, farming practices and the difference between our grandma's apple and the right now apple. And then part two to my question is, you talked about intelligence there. That's how I received what you said. And I thought to myself, Mother Earth, planet Earth, that we have the honor of living on as we pass Earth Day in this moment, this earth has its intelligence, and our job, according to Ayurveda, is to live in rhythm with nature, not out of sync with nature. So isn't it interesting that what you're saying is this intelligence of the plant kingdom and earth to give us minerals in the exact right proportions and balance is the way our body is supposed to receive it. We're not meant to take like a one shot and just that fixes the problem. We're meant to be in a synergistic approach. And that very much fits the Ayurvedic mindset of plants work in synergy to give us the healing properties we need. So will you share on both of those, why our farming food sucks, and then that piece as well?
Yes, that's so beautiful what you said. I just really want to reflect that, because it is truly where I ended up, because I had come from having a body with all these different problems, and I went to different doctors trying to heal these different problems, my sinuses or my gut or, my adrenals, each one, or my mouth, each one was a different specialist. And instead, I ended up at this place that you're talking about, which is this entire body as this incredibly beautiful, miraculous ecosystem.
Right.
That evolved on the earth, operates actually in rhythm, in relationship with the earth. So that I feel like what's beautiful is you and I have both come around to the same place, and that I want to acknowledge that. So
Thank you.
So how did it get this way where we're experiencing what the World Health Organization calls the hidden hunger? It's actually a term for micronutrient deficiency that is a result of our foods not being able to provide anymore the nutrition that our body needs.
Okay.
So why is that? It's really interesting because lots of people, know that thing like, oh yeah, our food supply is depleted of minerals, but it really is. It's truly a fact that to get the nutrition from an apple that your grandfather ate, you'd have to eat like 6 or 7 apples today. And why is that? It's that when a plant grows in the soil, it actually creates all of the structure in the plant by utilizing the minerals in the soil. It takes the minerals from the soil and it creates structure. Actually, when you grow a baby inside your body, it's the same thing.
Really?
All of the structure in that baby, all of the minerals come from your body. If you actually took all of the water out of your body, you'd be a little pile of minerals and maybe some amino acids.
So if we're deficient in minerals going into pregnancy, it's going to get taken out of us.
In fact, that's why my mouth ended up being in such a challenging situation, because I was extremely depleted before I got pregnant. I had 2 children, and it completely, it like went into my bones, into my teeth, and it just said, wait, we've got to get it from somewhere.
Right.
Okay. So that's it. So when we do farming, we grow plants. Now in nature, plants grow and ultimately they die and they decompose and the minerals go back into the earth. But we, in our wisdom, we cultivate, we take those plants away from the soil, and then we do that time and over and over again for hundreds or in some cases thousands of years. We've been cultivating in the same soil. And it's one thing to get like fertilizer, put fertilizer back into the soil, some humus, different things, but to get minerals back into the soil in a way that is bioavailable to the plant, where the plant can actually utilize them, is very, very difficult. In fact, there's been such a problem that in the 1930s, they had a whole session of Congress about mineral depletion in the soils. And since then, we've done nothing about it.
I was going to say, like, let's say I owned 100 acres of farmland, and let's say my whole job was to feed my family, growing stuff on the farm. My goal will be maximum utilization.
Yes.
But what if we hand that land down for generations after generations? Now you've had hundreds of years, like you just said, of like growing corn and corn and corn and corn. You took everything out of the soil. So now you'll synthetically add things in just enough to keep producing. But really the right way to go was to rotate those crops. And when you rotated them, don't just like grow grass and feed it to cows or something, like grow something that when it decays, remineralizes. And you might have to do that for multiple seasons or multiple years, which is probably rare that people would do that.
Right, exactly. So it's very challenging. And that's one of the main reasons that we're all experiencing some level of mineral depletion. In fact, scientists believe that modern humans have only between 30 and 40% of the minerals in their body that they need just for normal function.
Wow.
If you're not actively, replenishing minerals in your system using tools that truly work for replenishment, you're operating, like take the light in the room where you are and just turn it down to 40%. That's the way most people are operating.
That statement is like the most profound statement I've heard when it comes to nutrient deficiency. Exactly. Because guys in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, don't you sometimes feel that way? Don't you sometimes feel like the light's been turned down, like you wake up in the morning and you're still tired, you're going through the motions of starting to your day, you wait for your first cup of caffeine to hit, and then you're like, I might need another. So we're synthetically trying to turn the lights up with caffeine, with nootropics, with supplements, with all sorts of things. We're trying to like turn up the light and hold it there. And then we go to eat expecting that food to give us energy. And here the food is nutrient deficient, mineral deficient. And so we're running around like 40% bulbs. Like when you said that to me, I thought, oh my God, I have days where I feel like that. I have days where I'm like, what else can I do to fill up? Like I'm trying to hydrate with electrolytes, trying to take the right supplements and all the things. So will you share like what is it about the way we're taking minerals that we're not winning? Because I think so many of us read online and everyone's like, "Oh, I should take my magnesium. I should take my iron. I should." So will you explain why those big minerals and taking it in that way is not the best way?
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time in the grocery stores and the health food stores in the supplement aisle where all the minerals are, talking to people who are looking at these single pill bottles, and they may have a shopping cart filled with like 5 or 6 or 7 bottles of different mineral pills. They've got maybe magnesium, and maybe they have an electrolyte drink or powder, and maybe they have chromium and selenium, and they have some zinc, and they have,
Iron.
And the thing that I know is at home, most people have what I call the supplement graveyard. And it's that cupboard filled with pills and powders and different things, right?
Yep.
That you took for a while, you didn't notice any difference. And so they live in that cupboard because you don't really want to throw them away because you spent money on them.
You just wait till they expire. Like that's the situation with my calcium, my iron. I know what you're talking about because I buy
every 5 or 10 years you clean out the cupboard, right?
Exactly. Like we have that intention of taking good things, but it's hard to take so many things. So I'm constantly trying to pare down into like, what are the 3 most important? What are the 5 most important? And that's why I told you before we started the podcast, I'm very specific about which things I finally incorporate. When I make that decision that you're part of the foundational non-negotiables in my life, then I'm going to share it with the world because it takes a lot to come into like that lineup. To me right now, it's just turmeric, probiotic, D, and now minerals. And I'm like, that's my mandatory daily. And then I step up the game from there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so this thing about everyone's only operating at 40%. So, as a practitioner, that so many people are struggling with a myriad of complex chronic issues.
Absolutely.
And so when you think about your body only operating at 40%, it doesn't have enough energy to take care of all the things it could take care of.
Right.
And so it has to pick and choose. It has to keep your heart beating. It has to keep your blood flowing. It has to keep your lungs going. It has to keep, some fundamental things going. Yes, exactly. So you end up, maybe you feel that brain fog, or you're not sleeping well, or you're opening the fridge at night going, I need something.
Right.
And what if it's just your cells literally saying, I need minerals?
Right.
What does a hungry cell crave? Sugar and salt.
Mm.
And isn't that all our junk foods?
True.
Sugar and salt. So, why don't all those pills and powders work? So one of the interesting things about most pills and powders in the mineral world is they're made from rocks, shells, and bones. Now, if you're eating food and you get a rock, a shell, or bone in your mouth, what do? You spit it out.
Absolutely.
Because you can't digest it well.
Right.
Now, even though those rocks, shells, and bones are powdered, the component size that those minerals have to get to actually be absorbed into your bloodstream through the lining of your gut is extremely, extremely small.
Okay.
So you actually only digest about 10 to 12% of those supplements.
Got it.
And that relies on the health of your gut microbiome, the enzymatic processes, all of the ability of your gut to break things down. So if you have SIBO or IBS, or you have yeast proliferation, or if you have other imbalances in your gut microbiome and don't digest well, put a rock shell and bone in there, and it's even harder for that to get even the 10 to 12%.
True. And what do you say to the majority of the population who's taking some form of magnesium? Because I know when we spoke earlier and on a pre-interview call, and I said, I asked my functional medicine team, I'm like, hey, should I take magnesium threonate, glycinate? Like everyone's taking everything. I should take it too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So one of the things I will say preaching, and I think you can appreciate this because of where you've come to in terms of understanding that this is an ecosystem that we have here. So the way I like to describe this is imagine what we know about the gut microbiome now. And it's this incredibly complex system of many, many, many organisms and all sorts of fungi and bacteria, beneficial bacteria. There's all sorts of different living organisms in there, okay? And when it's in a balance, it's the metaphor that I like to use is it's like a forest. Imagine incredibly lush and healthy forest where plants just thrive and grow, and there's enough water and there's enough nutrients and there's enough light and everything's just healthy. And you go in there and it's like, wow, this is amazing. Now take a wheelbarrow of magnesium into that forest and dump it on the forest floor. And what happens to the plants in that area?
They're not going to thrive.
Don't thrive. They say this is excess because ecosystems, and your gut in particular, that's why we call it now a microbiome, is an ecosystem, and it thrives on balance. Ecosystems do not thrive with large amounts of any particular substance.
True.
And your body doesn't actually know what to do. When you take a large amount of magnesium and it puts you to sleep or it makes you eliminate, it's because there is excess. That's the reaction that you're having is actually a response to the excess in your system. So yes, it will make you sleep or it will create elimination, make you eliminate. But what you're doing is you're putting a Band-Aid on the system and you're continuing the up and down roller coaster experience in your body.
Wow.
So if you want to, instead, I'm like wanting people to walk around and look from a different angle, see their body as an ecosystem and think, okay, how can I support balance in my body?
Sure.
And ask, is that pill or powder that's made from rock shells or bones going to actually support that?
Absolutely. And it really comes back to what we said, that intelligence of the body, that ecosystem. And so will you share? It's so funny because we just came off the TV show and the TV show team was like, stop saying, will you share? So every time I say, will you share now, I'm like, I was told not to do that.
You can say it here.
It's my own podcast. I'll say it how I want.
Right.
Caroline, will you share about the 2 types of minerals you made? Because to me, I tried your product to be minerals and I was like, whoa. At first, because one of the liquids was black, I was like, that's going to taste disgusting. I don't know about that. And then when I tried it, it tasted like water. And it's funny, just before this podcast interview, my glass was black because I drank my minerals for today. I was like, this is the easiest homework. It's just like drinking electrolytes. It tastes like nothing. It's perfect. Will you share about fulvic and humic acid, how they're formed, and why it's so important that we get them? Because I had no idea, truly. I had no idea what these 2 things were and their importance for the body.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify that I'm not going to talk about fulvic and humic acid yet. I'm going to talk about fulvic and humic molecules.
Perfect.
Okay? Because when it comes to the word acid, that's just simply the way that the fulvic and humic are extracted from their base material. So, and the reason it's important is that fulvic and humic as molecules have specific capacities. And let me talk about where they come from.
Yeah.
So what are these things? So imagine an entire rainforest back when the dinosaurs lived. So that's 65 million years ago. And the around the earth in many, many places, there were these amazing rainforests filled with freshwater plants. Okay. And a big meteor hit the Yucatan and it killed 75% of all life on Earth. And all these rainforests around the Earth died and decomposed over millennia. And so in different parts of the world, there are these different materials that out of which you can get humic and fulvic. Well, like in the Himalayas, they have shilajit.
Right.
And in the British Isles, they have peat. And in the Amazon basin, they have something called black soil, and they have other materials called leonardite. In our products come from a material called humate. It's a black crystalline substance. It's comes from the Southwest United States in one of the richest deposits of humic and fulvic in the world. And it's about 10 to 12 feet below the surface of the earth. So it's not had any contact with modern pollutants, and that's really a beautiful aspect. And it's a dry substance, so mold doesn't develop in it and that kind of thing. It's completely dry. And we take that material and we take it to our facility in Colorado, and we extract, using a water-based alkaline process, these two molecules called humic and fulvic.
Nice.
The beautiful thing about these materials is that they have all of the minerals that your body needs naturally formulated in the ratios of minerals that your body utilizes.
I love that statement.
A lot of magnesium, potassium, calcium, chloride, the what we call the macro minerals, the ones you use a lot of, but there are also smaller, very important ratios of all those minerals you've probably never heard of, like molybdenum, or knew that you needed to take, like phosphorus, vanadium, boron, things that people are like, what are those? I never heard of them. But your body really needs them. They're extremely important for all sorts of processes in the body.
Wow. It's so fascinating to me because there's so many parallels to Ayurveda there. Even turmeric as a plant, when I was doing my dissertation, turmeric has curcuminoids. We value the curcuminoids. When I was in India this year, my supplier, who I sat down with, he said, look, you have to give the curcuminoids in the correct ratio. And a lot of people can mess with that because they just want to reach the 95% standardization. So they'll push to get to the number, as opposed to giving the exact correct ratio so the body absorbs it. So you can overshoot the number in terms of your extraction, and then you land there. It's just two different approaches: synthetically pushing something or naturally achieving it so the body will absorb it properly. And I thought to myself, I was like, that's probably why people tell me they feel a difference taking mine, because we did it the right way. And so that's why when I met you, I was like, thank you. Thank you for being as obsessed with potency, quality, ratio, and the intelligence of plants as I am, because otherwise, anyone can create a supplement, anyone can create a solution. But if you're not honoring body's relation to nature, you're not going to give the result you're actually seeking. You're going to cause more harm than good, actually, which is what you're talking about, overdoing things and over pushing things. So when people consume this as a liquid, is it more bioavailable to the body?
It is. I just have to say, Shivani, that's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So I could spend a long time just talking about that with you.
Yeah.
So yes, the liquids are more bioavailable. And why is that? So when you think about, we talked about the rocks, shells, and bones, it goes in your gut, and now it has to be broken down. So that's the first stage of what we call bioavailability. The second stage is when some portion of that gets actually absorbed through the lining of your gut. Now, the interesting thing is, of those rocks, shells, and bones, only 7 to 10% actually gets absorbed through the lining of your gut. And that's for somebody with a pretty healthy gut lining. But we know we're dealing with all sorts of gut problems, inflammation, and malabsorption issues. So 7 to 10 could even be a very optimistic number.
Sure.
Okay? that's only 2 stages of the process for minerals, because minerals have to get digested, absorbed through the lining of your gut, and then they have to be assimilated into the cells, because most minerals in the body, they don't do their job in the bloodstream. They have to get inside your cells where they can be utilized by the mitochondria in your body for energy generation. Okay.
Got it. And you teach about how mitochondria are our little engines inside of our cells. And that's a piece of that puzzle when we talk about our light. I just love the analogies you use because it makes it so easy to understand. We're walking around as 40% turned on light bulbs, and then our poor mitochondria, the little engine that could, isn't getting fed.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I think it's really cool to let people know about the scale.
Yeah.
Because mitochondria, for me, it was very abstract. Okay,
Sure.
Mitochondria, what is that? Energy, what do they call them? The powerhouses of the cell or whatever. But I'm like, well, what really is it? Okay.
Right.
So, and to give a sense of scale of this, you have like 37 to 150 trillion cells in your body. Depending on your size, maybe you're 120.
I'm probably on the lower side. Yeah. only 5 feet tall, and I'm petite.
Yeah, exactly. But for a big 230 pound big athlete, he's probably more on the 150 trillion cell side. Okay, and in a single cell, just on the back of your hand here, in one single cell, you might have 100 mitochondria, and in your heart, in a single cell, you could have 5,000 to 8,000 mitochondria. And in your brain, in a single cell on a neuron, you could have up to 2 million mitochondria.
Holy goodness.
So can you imagine? It's inconceivable, the scale of the number of mitochondria required in your body to create all the energy that I'm using right now to talk to you, to move my hands, to think of what I'm saying, and then all of the neurological processes that make it possible for me to talk and make sound, and my heart is still pumping, and my breath is coming, and all of the biosynthesis processes, the autonomic processes are naturally happening in the background. You see how much energy is being produced. So now you have to realize that if I'm only operating, luckily I've been taking minerals for a long time, so maybe I'm operating at 70%, So then my skin gets, starts bringing some shine, and I feel like I have some bandwidth for life, and I don't feel, that brain fog, and I can focus and concentrate, and I can sleep well. And so then all of, everything feeds into feeling vibrant and vital.
You kind of just got me stuck on a thought that's so profound. You said, and I am at the end of my day, and I feel like I've used all my brain function. By the way, I'm still, while I'm talking to you, I'm like caffeinating with my afternoon tea. I'm hydrating. I'm doing all my things in the podcast because I can tell the light starting to dim in my brain. But heart, that many mitochondria, brain up to 2 million. My whole brain was like, yeah, honey, that's why we're asking you for help all the time. You're not giving it to us, but you expect 100% output. You want to remember everything, teach everything, do everything, and function like 10 people in one body. So give us the fuel already. But isn't that fascinating? The intelligence of the body to put that many energy centers in the exact right places to do the exact right jobs for us. And yet the thing it takes to give it structure. And it's funny because a lot of people think of vitamin, but do they think of their minerals?
Right.
I think that's why we're seeing this insane amount of chronic disease, and specifically certain organs just not able to give us the output we need. Why are we having so many thyroid conditions? Why are we having so much Alzheimer's, dementia, so much brain health issues, so much brain fog? Your 2 million mitochondria are like, you didn't give me anything. Sorry, not gonna give you anything back.
Exactly.
Wow.
And back to the earth, so think about our bodies, and our bodies are entirely made of cells, and cells evolved on the earth. They are part of the Earth's ecosystem.
True.
Our cellular systems are evolved right next to all the other cellular systems on Earth. So doesn't it make sense that nature would have provided the method, since it was so important that minerals get all the way broken down, absorbed, and then assimilated into these cells, there should be some sort of method to support that. And that's what humic and fulvic are. Actually, all plants, underneath the soil, we have these mycelium, and they're these incredible fungi that they actually deliver the packets of nutrition to the roots of plants. And do you know what they're delivering? Humic and fulvic.
Wow.
You see, they're actually, so this is truly your body recognizes these molecules and knows how to utilize them. And so we talked about how these humic and fulvic, they have the full spectrum of minerals that your body needs in these natural ratios. So they don't cause imbalance in the system the way that wheelbarrow of magnesium would. They're literally like if you took all the beautiful things into that forest and you broadcast them in minute amounts, and the forest just went, yes, this is great. This is exactly what I need. Compost tea and these things that gardeners know about. That's what they are. Okay.
Right.
So the beautiful thing is that not only do the humic and fulvic provide the full spectrum minerals, but they also do some amazing things. First of all, they represent the delivery system for the minerals into your cells. So fulvic, this small molecule, it's a term that we've all heard called flavonoid.
True.
And a flavonoid is an intercellular transporter. So the way I like to describe this is if you're in a room and you have a door and there's a guy out there and he's got a big backpack and he fills it full of all the good stuff you need for the day, and he brings it in and he dumps it out on your desk. Now you've got all the good stuff you need for the day. And that's what fulvic does.
Okay.
It literally carries 60 times its weight of nutrients right into the cell.
Wow.
And the cell, which is usually a barrier to keep out non-beneficial substances, recognizes fulvic as a beneficial substance, and any channel that opens, the fulvic gets a free pass through.
Nice.
And then it carries those nutrients in, and it does something that no other molecule on Earth can do. It changes its polarity. And when it changes its polarity, those elements drop off inside the cell. It is literally a delivery system.
Wow.
Right.
It's like an air cargo ship almost that lands in the middle of, let's say, Africa, could be India, could be anywhere, and feeds everyone who just needs it the most.
Literally, it is the delivery system for nutrients into the cell. Okay. And now it's in a different polarity, and now it does the opposite. What it does is it cleans up the detritus. It gathers biowaste, toxins, heavy metals, things like nanoplastics, cellular detritus, just that from the operations of biosynthesis. And now it carries those out of the cell. The same way it came in, it just carries those out. Wow. And then it changes its polarity again, and it drops those things off inside the bloodstream. So it's this intercellular transport, both nutrients in and biowaste and toxins out.
Does that mean when people take
technology?
That is a powerful technology. Does that mean when people take your minerals, they should stay well hydrated so they're clearing?
What it actually means is that it will help them stay hydrated. So lots of people, and this is where I talk about salt-based electrolytes. So a lot of people are taking salt-based electrolytes on a regular basis. Now, what I tell people is it's one thing to use those once in a while because you're experiencing an extreme deficit. But when you use them on a regular basis, what actually happens is your system is not a saltwater system. It's a freshwater system. If you drink a glass of salt water, you'll feel queasy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's too salty. Yeah.
Yeah. We drink fresh water because our bodies actually absorb fresh water. Now, you can use salt-based electrolytes and get a quick infusion, But when you use them on a regular basis, it actually irritates the lining of the bladder and the kidney, and it makes you urinate more. And now you're actually irrigating. You're flushing your system of minerals and nutrients. You're irrigating, not hydrating. So
But what
instead,
you're saying is counterbalance to what so many are saying. So many are saying, and I've heard this from practitioners, every glass of water you drink should have electrolytes every single time. And what's interesting is a lot of electrolytes, like I like a brand called Superior, but it has sugar. So I'm like, well, that takes you out of ketosis, or you're having sugar throughout your day. And are you even brushing your teeth to be having sugar all day? Or people add salt in.
it's fulvic. All you need is fulvic in your water.
Okay.
That's what we call our electrolyzed product, which is fulvic.
Okay.
Next generation hydration. Because what it's doing is, first of all, it's not salt-based, so it's not causing the irritation.
Okay.
It's providing the full spectrum of electrolytes and minerals that you need.
Nice.
In such a bioavailable format, it requires no digestion at all.
Wow.
So anytime you have a drink that's flavored, it requires digestion first. It has to first be broken down. This is completely ionized. It's ready for absorption the minute you drink it.
Wow. Okay. So then I have a question.
Immediately through any tissue it touches.
Got it. So then when you take B minerals, I thought you take the fulvic and the humic together. But are you saying that later throughout your day, you can use just one as your electrolyte solution?
What I'm saying is the foundational amount for your mineral replenishment would be to take both the electrolytes and the microboost, the fulvic and the humic together.
Okay.
But every time I fill up a glass of water, I put it just like you said. Every glass of water should have electrolytes, especially if you're drinking reverse osmosis or, a distilled water.
Yeah.
You need to remineralize your water. So I put a splash of electrolytes in there. Now I've got remineralized water, and I've got the delivery system for the minerals into my cells. So this is true hydration.
Wow.
Because drinking your salt-based electrolytes with the sugar in them, first of all, because the sugar, now they have to be digested. You're only going to ever digest and absorb a very, very small amount of that because of that requirement. And then you're also creating potential irritation to that lining of the bladder and kidney if you're doing it regularly.
Sure.
So now you're irrigating. So you don't want to do that. We want to hydrate.
I don't want to dehydrate as I hydrate. I am already an over caffeinator with my happy green tea addiction that I have, and I'm already well aware of it, and I'm okay with that. So I have like 3 or 4 cups of green tea. So every cup of water I drink has to count. It can't be like a diuretic effect where it's all coming out of me and then I'm chronically dehydrated, which by the way is how I feel. I chronically feel dehydrated. And just now that I'm back in town, I'm like, okay, take your minerals, start being a good kid. So I didn't know that I could just add electrolytes to my water. I'm just going to keep a bottle in my office. I'm going to keep a bottle on my vitamin tray. Like I just need a bottle in 3 places. Because if you don't carry your electrolyte solution around with you, you're just not going to have it. And then you're going to keep hydrating without it. But I want to go back to one thing. You gave this most beautiful image of, I think of it as the garbage man now, but the 60-pound backpack, I think of it kind of like a Marine walking in with everything, giving you everything good. And then it's powerful enough to then switch positions, turn into your garbage man, pick up everything bad and take it out. How powerful that you can serve all the jobs. So you said fulvic is the one that does that.
Yes.
So what's the cool analogy for humic? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I love that. So humic and fulvic, they're partners. Okay. Everywhere one exists, the other exists. And so humic is a large molecule. It hangs out in the bloodstream. I call it Mother Nature's janitor.
Nice.
It is truly the tool for your body to remove stuff that is not beneficial. Okay. Hangs out in the bloodstream. I like to imagine it like a Velcro ball. It's extremely sticky on the outside. It's got a huge amount of surface area, and it's one of the strongest electrolyte molecules known to man, so it's very sticky.
Okay.
It just travels through your bloodstream. It gathers free radicals. So thousands of times more effective as an antioxidant than almost any other natural substance known to
Amazing.
man.
Nice.
It chelates with heavy metals. It binds with bio-waste and toxins, things like nanoplastics, again, that have been dumped into your bloodstream, right? From that the fulvic dropped, all that stuff, the fulvic molecule dropped into your bloodstream, the humic molecule just gathers up. It does a particular thing with a very challenging toxin that we're all being exposed to called glyphosate, which is
Yes.
the weed killer that's sprayed on genetically
Everything.
modified foods.
Yeah.
So that has lots of different challenging aspects in your system, one of which is that it actually chelates out some beneficial minerals, iron, molybdenum, and copper, 3 minerals that are really important to many processes in the body.
Sure.
So what it does is it actually gathers that glyphosate molecule, and ultimately it gets so heavy, this molecule gets so heavy at a molecular weight, it falls out of solution and it leaves your body through all the elimination channels. And that is really interesting because in detoxification processes, they usually talk about certain channels needing to be open, but with the humic, you will use any channel, including your tears, your snot, your sweat, your saliva, your breath, just rubbing your hands together, any skin sloughing off the bottoms of your feet, as well as your urine and feces. So it's extremely effective as a continual detoxification agent. So rather than going and doing big detox protocols that often make you feel horrible, you can just take humic, which continually detoxifies your system.
I love daily detox solutions. In Ayurveda, I teach it as tongue scraping, oil pulling, dry brushing. There's so many tools we have, but if we can systemically support ourselves to do anything daily, I'm a big fan. Because when you said environmental toxins, I immediately thought mold, self-care, skincare, obesogens, Teflon. Like there's so many things. Glyphosate, I mean, gosh, just talk about a troublemaker. If it wasn't for glyphosate, I could eat bread in this country. So, there's so many things that are floating around in us. So to have like the ultimate Mother Nature janitor go in there makes me very happy personally, because I know that that's kind of like the last door. Sometimes when you're in health and wellness, you've already done everything. You've done the big detoxes. You've given up gluten. You've given up inflammatory foods. You've done biohacking. You've addressed everything in functional medicine, but you find that there's still these last few doors left. And you're constantly, at least for me, seeking out like, what is it I'm supposed to do next to just finally feel the way I want to feel and get to where I want to go with my health and vibrancy. And then I feel like as you age through your decades and half decades, you've got new issues. So it's almost like, gosh, you just made more doors I have to go through. And so this very much sounds like a shortcut, but that's not the right way to explain it. It sounds like the honoring of the intelligence of the building blocks that the body needs to start really winning at a cellular level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's truly a reframe, from, we've this term biohacking is becoming well known, and everyone's going out on the internet and researching what they need. And then they're taking this big stack of pills and whatever to every day. And I want people to really shift their thinking about their body from doing to it to having a relationship with it.
Absolutely.
And recognizing that it's an ecosystem, and that the best thing to do is to support an ecosystem is to ask it what it needs, and to really think about it from the balance and how to support. When you're using megadose, what I call megadose minerals, which is like those pills and powders that are measured in milligrams.
Yeah.
What you're doing is constantly creating imbalance in a system that thrives on you're creating imbalance when you're in a system that thrives on balance.
Correct.
So when you're using plant-based minerals, you're using literally the solution that was designed and evolved on the earth to support cellular systems of which your body is one.
Right. I love that.
And then you're allowing your body in its innate wisdom
Yeah.
to pick and choose what it needs, when it needs it, where it needs it.
Right. Which is our job. It's beautiful. I love that.
It really is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so aligned with the Ayurveda. It's true.
It is. It's very aligned. Ayurveda is saying bring body, mind, and spirit into balance. Bring it all into alignment. How do you bring it into alignment? Support body, support mind, and bring together your spiritual health. It's pretty simple, but we really overcomplicate it, like you said. So Caroline, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing about minerals and allowing us to geek out with you, since you are the original mineral geek, and sharing, what you've created, because as a founder, it's so important to me that I know who created what I'm taking. And I know that it's a person, someone who cares, someone who's as passionate about product creation as I am. So will you share how people can find you? And I know that we created a special cool code for my listeners, Dr. Shivani. So will you share your site and where everyone can find you?
Yeah, you can just go to beamminerals.com, and maybe you'll put the link in the
Yes.
show notes so people can just link straight through.
Perfect.
And you can go there. I highly recommend considering the advanced set, which is both
Nice.
electrolyze and microboost together. That's like the foundational piece that you can provide your body to support it with all the minerals you need. beamminerals.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you and what you created for all of us. I know we need help getting the body to turn its light all the way up as much as we can to be our brightest shining light that we can be for the world. So thank you.
Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.